So welcome everyone today to our breakfast brief. 4C and Precursive are delighted to host you for managing projects remotely on Salesforce. We wrote a playbook together, us and 4C. Given the COVID environment, we thought it made sense to see how people are actually challenging themselves with their delivery processes now that they're having to move to a remote setting. We've got some great speakers on the call today, which I'll introduce shortly, but I'll just introduce you to the agenda to start with. So we'll have those introductions, and then we'll have the new remote reality discussion, talking about how we're framing the COVID environment for delivery. And then we'll cover our 3 plays, which are stabilize, setting up, and future-proof. Each of our plays is segmented with a discussion section, so feel free to jump in on the discussion section with your questions or any advice that you might have for people on the call. And also if you find that you want to ask a question, you should be able to see a little hand symbol that you can raise your hand and someone will hopefully come to you. If they don't, raise your hand again because we might have missed it. Feel free to, if you stay on mute throughout, just so we can hear everything clearly. But when we get to those discussion sessions, you can unmute yourself and ask those questions. We then at the end have what does good look like, discussion with Sean and Nathan. And then we have a Q&A section again at the end, just for any last minute niggling questions you might have regarding anything we've covered today. But we'll be looking at how Salesforce can be used as a platform for more than just sales, the anatomy of successful remote project management, and the steps you can take to future-proof your project management and any technology that might underpin that. So let's move on to the introductions, and I'd like to get the guys to introduce themselves if possible. So shall we start with you, Jonathan?
Hi everyone, welcome along. I'm Jonathan Corrie. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Precursive. Prior to Precursive, I was working in what is now Gartner in professional services, and experienced firsthand some of the challenges with project management and resourcing and capacity planning. At the time in that business, we were actually using Salesforce as our CRM system, but our delivery team, who I worked closely with, when I dug into what they were doing and using, it was all sort of strung together with spreadsheets and blood, sweat and tears. And I asked at the time, where's the Salesforce for this team? And it didn't exist, so we built it, and that's Precursive. So delighted that you all took the time to join this morning.
Great. And Nathan?
Hi everyone, my name is Nathan and I am the PMO lead at 4C. 4C is a Salesforce partner who deliver Salesforce solutions for a wide range of customers in various different industries and sectors. And I think a similar thing that Jonathan just mentioned, I think we've been able to leverage and utilize Salesforce significantly for how we deliver our projects for our clients. And again, based on the topic that we're going to discuss today, the new remote reality has really forced us to really focus on how we can continue to leverage it to ensure that we're delivering as much customer value as possible.
Great. And Sean?
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm Sean. I'm the Vice President of Customer Success at Apperio. Apperio is a legal spend management platform. And I've been leading customer success and professional services teams for the past few years. And for us, Salesforce has become a critical tool, not just for managing relationships with customers, but also for managing the delivery of projects from both onboarding teams and professional services teams to ensure our customers are getting value as quickly as possible. We've recently gone through the process of moving our onboarding process, which is very much project management based, from which was previously managed outside of Salesforce, and we've moved that into Salesforce, which all happened at the same time that everyone was going in lockdown. So for us, this is very, very salient topic of a conversation.
Great, thanks guys, and you'll hear more from everyone throughout the conversation. So why did we even write this playbook in the first place, and why I'm presenting this to you today? Well, remote working has become the new normal, but for some people it's sort of becoming a short-term survivalist attitude, and other people it's an opportunity to supercharge for the future. But what hasn't changed is you're likely to still be delivering customer-centric projects. That's still the central tenet of what you want to be doing. And the basic principles of healthy and successful project management haven't changed, but true resilience in the face of this new remote reality requires the utilization of a new lens and how that lens might impact your delivery process. So, fortunately, we've all got to understand that remote working is likely your new remote reality. And some of you conducted a survey that I pre-sent, and most people said that they were forced into the new remote reality and into remote delivery. They didn't choose it. There's also a range of project management functionality on the Salesforce platform, so that's why we brought that in as well, that can support you with remote working. And we'll start by helping you evaluate your requirements and how they might determine your most successful path there. But first, we'll hand over to Nathan, who will help frame today's topics, because he can give you a perspective on what the new remote reality truly means for your project delivery. So over to you, Nathan.
Awesome, thank you, Robbie. So yeah, I think the best way to frame this is just to kind of talk a little bit about how, from at least from our perspective as a professional services offering and delivery company, how we were delivering and what kind of levers we're using to ensure we're delivering as effectively as possible pre-COVID. So before we were faced with a new, almost remote reality for delivering our projects for our clients. So in terms of how we were engaging with our clients prior to COVID, a lot of emphasis was placed on leveraging face-to-face engagement and face-to-face kind of interactions, with also the remote benefits of technology as well. And what I mean by that, so when we ordinarily were delivering projects for our clients, there will be a lot of on-site time spent with our clients as a result. So for example, when we're looking at things like having workshops, requirements gathering, looking at things like UAT, maybe deployment, we leverage that kind of face-to-face interaction to ensure that we're offering the customers as much value as possible and making sure that our delivery model was quite personalized as well. So customers, as a result, always felt that we were very easily accessible and we were always willing to go that extra mile almost to make sure that whatever the customer may have needed from us or required, we were able to provide that offering. So we utilized that immensely on our engagements prior to COVID to ensure that we're almost offering the customers, yes, we can provide you with brilliant solutions from a technological perspective, but we also always go the extra mile to ensure that the engagement is as efficient as possible and we're offering the most value that we can. So then moving on to almost a new remote reality post-COVID, this really changed things for us significantly because we were then forced to really focus on the benefits of remote delivery. So for example, in the past where you may have had the ability to resolve certain issues by potentially going on site, that was no longer an option for us. So we really had to start focusing on how we work collaboratively with our clients using technology. What kinds of communication channels were we utilizing, using, framing to ensure that we're offering the client as much value and efficiency gains as a result of this new reality. I think one of the things that we did realize as a result of this shift in dynamics, however, was the fact that we were able to be far more productive with our time. As again, going back to our previous service offering where we were utilizing face-to-face time and doing things on site, that was no longer an option. But at the same time, we were no longer utilizing or burning time in traveling, potentially going to certain parts of the country where it will take quite a bit of time to get there, to get settled in. We were now getting hours back that we could then use to ensure that we're providing our customers with a lot more productivity and a lot more focus on exactly what we're trying to deliver for them, whether it be a product or a solution within the relevant milestones and project delivery timelines. And I think thirdly, one of the things that we realized quite quickly as a result of this new reality was how important efficient support channels were. And what I mean by that is how quickly we need to make sure that clients have a very clear path and very clear understanding as to how they can communicate with us and what is the most effective way of doing so to ensure that our delivery on our projects are not hampered or affected by the new reality of actually having to discuss and resolve things in this new remote environment. So just to touch a little bit on our perspective from a 4C perspective, as I mentioned before, we leverage Salesforce not only as a sales tool, but also as a project management tool. And as a result, as I've mentioned before, of this new reality, we've been able to ensure that from an operational perspective, we've made the relevant adjustments to our processes and to our systems to enable us to deliver as effectively as possible for our clients. I think another important thing from our perspective was the fact that we had to ensure that business as usual was not impacted by the new reality, as there were so many shock waves as a result of the new reality being almost enforced upon us. So our tool enabled us to leverage certain capabilities to ensure that what we were delivering at a foundational level, there was a minimal impact on our clients as a result. So we can utilize and leverage certain processes and procedures within Salesforce to ensure that our business as usual and our service offerings were not affected as significantly as possible. And again, going back to the last point when talking about the new reality, I think this enabled us to focus more on the response time to clients. So moving very quickly to say, okay, this is how you can engage with us as a result of now us having to work in this remote setting. And here are almost the rules of engagement. If you need to contact us, please use this method. And this is how we're going to ensure we're still providing you with the value that you have come and expected from us prior to us dealing with this new reality.
Great, thank you, Nathan. I think what's really interesting there is keeping the customer happy is a central part of the whole of this conversation. So yes, we're delivering in a completely new way in many cases, and we're having to be quite agile with how projects are moving around. But what's really important is making sure the customer still gets what they paid for. So that's great. Thank you very much. Cool. So I'll quickly highlight the 3 plays that we're going through and just shoot through this, and then we'll head straight into the first play. So play 1 is stabilizing, essentially where are you now and what do you need to achieve to be able to deliver well. 2 is how to actually do remote project management well. So how is the remote aspect going to impact you? And number 3 is future proofing, like I've said previously, supercharging for the future, not just the current reality, almost taking this as an opportunity rather than a hindrance. So I'll jump straight into play 1, stabilization, evaluating your priorities against your tech stack. So we all want to take our customers on a journey that leads them to renewing their relationship or at least growing their relationship with us. So in most cases, there'll be a project that follows on from a sale, but perhaps that part is overlooked from a technology perspective, with many companies still living in spreadsheets to manage their complex work. And often the issue with Salesforce is that it's called Salesforce. It's got sales in the name and people see it as a CRM tool or a sales tool. But actually the Salesforce platform can help us manage this entire journey. And you can generate a lot of value by bringing multiple business processes into the same place, not just focus on the sales activities. So Salesforce is key here. But most people might ask the question, can you even use Salesforce for project management? Now, a lot of people who answered our pre-survey said, yes, we actually do see it that way, but there's still some people on the fence. Well, one, it might be part of your existing tool set, and I think for 90% of people on the call, it is. So the investment's already been made. You can actually enhance the investment that you've created. Secondly, to tackle the remote reality, it's a cloud-based platform. So the obvious part is that your team can log on and access project data from anywhere with an internet connection, however remote they are. So that overcomes that hurdle of distance, physical distance. And then you have questions around, well, is it project management or is it professional services automation? this is kind of a continuum of project management, but you need to understand what your results need to be in order to place what you want from your tool. So that's important to ask yourself those 3 questions. So many people on the call today, like I said, stated that they are forced into remote project delivery. So you'll want to stabilize that delivery, and you'll want to look towards your current methods and requirements to see if it will highlight, well, am I just surviving this short term, or am I wanting to progress towards smarter delivery? Well, there is project management functionality available to you on Salesforce out the box. So what does that look like? Well, it's your base range of PM functionality that can help you get started. But then most people, what they do if they're managing projects on Salesforce, actually look towards a project management application. And here you can see as your complexity of work increases, and you might have multiple people working on projects at the same time, or perhaps a lot of tasks and dependencies that need to be managed, then you need to take the time to consider whether project management is the right one for you, and does that project management actually plug into Salesforce. You might have heard of the App Exchange, which is like the Google Play of the Salesforce world, where there's multiple offerings of project management tools. But then we move one step further, and this is essentially a timeline of basically project complexity. If you start selling and delivering consulting or professional services, then this is where a PSA app will really help you manage the people and projects, inclusive of your budgets and billings associated with that work. So it's just about managing the level of complexity in your project. So to break that down a little bit further, let's figure out what the actual activities would be on each of those 3 tiers. So like I said, the Salesforce platform can help you manage simple day-to-day activities. We're talking about task management, team collaboration, sharing, dashboards, things like that. Mobile optimization is also there, so that will also help with the remoteness. But we call this area survival because it's simple activity tracking. It's not bespoke for your project management. So then taking it to the next stage, you still get those 5 areas, but what we add in then is things like process templates, project overviews with your calendar, Kanban views, all built in. And this is talking about managing your time and milestones here. So importantly, these apps will help you automate a range of processes to see the overall progress of your work, and it will effectively upgrade the base functions such as task management to become more intelligent metrics for you. So we call this stage stepping up. And then finally, if you're looking towards the PSA element of the tool, that's going to help you manage a much wider range of activities, including resource management, capacity planning, and the financial performance of billable work. So this is moving towards smarter delivery. And how you evaluate where you are on that? Well, we've got a simple template that you can actually get in the playbook that you'll be able to use to evaluate this. So we've got a nice little grid. And as you move towards services and your project gets more complex, you'll have these 4 tenets, and I'll explain the 4th one in a second. So I'm not going to read you through each of these things, but what you want to do is use our requirements evaluation grid to determine which of these statements you identify with and where your requirements will actually end up lying. Now, I put resource management app as also a separate one because there are separate resource management apps available to you on the Salesforce platform or off the Salesforce platform as well. But what you want to do is actually try and build that into your project management app or your PSA app, because then it becomes much more dynamic for you. But I'm just going to highlight 2 statements to show you the sort of gulf in class between these 2 things. So if you're looking at the base level, if you're using Salesforce project management, you're basically thinking, I need a plan for the right people and projects to manage my schedules better. So to a degree, a glorified to-do list. But when you go up to a high level project complexity, you're talking about tracking all performance of budgets, costs, margins, and that's critical to your business. You want to know what's most profitable for your business, what's working, what's not, and you can actually analyze the data. So that's play 1, that's stabilizing your current business set. So I think Jonathan has a few questions.
Yeah, really to our guests. So Sean, what have you learned about using technology in this new remote reality? How has it informed your thinking about the way that you run work at the moment?
Yeah, so I think what becomes very quickly apparent is with missing the office environment of being able to have those quick conversations to understand the state of play with various situations. So, for example, a customer success manager asking one of the project management team of just for a quick update on a project, or a salesperson asking what the capacity is like for bringing on board new work. Those types of conversations become much harder, and you can often find that having lots of different ways of communicating with people, whether that's email, Slack, or so on, it becomes very hard to kind of track where these conversations are going, and it becomes more and more challenging and you end up having people basically having to repeat the same answers over and over again. And so for us, by making it clear that we can drive this conversation through Salesforce, and it's, again, that notion that Salesforce is more than just a platform for managing sales. It's a place where you can put conversations and where you can track and provide all of this information in a single place, means that we free up people's times to focus on good execution and delivering work, and get ahead of those issues around not being able to kind of have those offline discussions.
Yeah, I mean, you've highlighted something there around the air gap between sales and delivery, and delivery is often called different things for many of us on the call today. But Nathan, in your world, I think that alignment between those teams is very important. Is that fair?
Yes, very, very much so. I think, again, that's one of our key learnings for actually being in this new reality, is the fact that essentially we've been able to make sure that alignment between sales and delivery still remains as firm as possible, just because we're utilizing Salesforce in a way where an opportunity is being, for example, created, but then as a result of it being closed won, it's then continuing within the tool to become a project. So we've essentially connected to very key parts of our delivery model within one place. And the reason why that's been so important for us, especially during this time, is the fact that within the sales team, things are quite fluid, things move quite fast. So they need to be able to have confidence in the fact that they can communicate with the project team within one channel as effectively as possible, to ensure that handover, which is for us probably the most important part of our delivery model, is as effective as possible. Because once we've done that and established that handover in the most efficient and effective way, we're able to then set the foundations for successful project delivery. So yeah, very, very important alignment piece for us, and we've been able to leverage that quite well as a result of Salesforce.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a customer's perspective, what I hear a lot from customers is that they hate repeating themselves, right? So the kind of the cardinal sin is, a person coming into what is now the virtual office after a 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, whatever your sales cycle time is, and that person saying, so what are your challenges? What is it you want to do? And the customer's thinking, well, what have I just spent the last X amount of time explaining to your colleague about in great detail? And so I think those transitions between functions is one of the things that every business that we speak to is really focused in on. And I think the next session around the process component really zeroes in on some of these things, right, Robbie?
Yes, indeed. And so this part's about putting the threads together, but the other play two is more about how. I was just going to turn it back to the audience. Is there anyone who wants to come off mute and ask any questions, or even state how they've been managing their day-to-day in the remote reality? I know it's not before 9 a.m, so.
Who's had their coffee?
No? Should we move on? I think we move on. Cool. So play two, setting up. So this is the anatomy of successful remote project management. I'm going to explore some key processes that will help you generate great outcomes through your project management efforts. So whether you're managing projects remotely or not, there's still 5 key stages that have always been applicable to your project management. However, with the physical distance now from your key project stakeholders, that means access to complex information in real time is probably your number 1 priority, but also your number 1 challenge. So this grid will show a variety of things. Your team might call them different things, but this highlights what the kind of activities we typically do across a project lifecycle. I'm not going to go through each of them individually because you probably know them yourself very well. What we want to highlight is that there's a human process to some of these touch points, but then there's also automation opportunities that exist in Salesforce to support these. So the first part is creating a project charter. That's a very human process, and that's probably one that you would still keep as a human process most likely. But then as you move into Salesforce processes, you can opportunity close one, coming out of sales, the statement of work, and forecasts. So there's 4 things that are great for the base level of Salesforce process that we mentioned earlier. But when you start getting more complex, again, you'll want to actually enhance these by automation. And again, I'm sure you can create a lot of these things manually with a human process, or create some of these things within a tech. It could be an Excel spreadsheet. The issue is the amount of time that would take. So all these other ones, like team management, utilization, capacity tracking, these are all enhanced by automation. And that's what you really want to be considering as your projects get more and more complex, which the remote reality has likely done to them. So what we've covered so far is the options that are there to support your project management activities on the Salesforce platform, and what are some of the key stages in the project and how those elements of virtual delivery can be automated. But then you want to evaluate these things against the 5 Ps, and this will ensure that your project runs smoothly even in a remote environment. So the first one, classic, state the obvious, plan. Make the plan visible and transparent to everyone in the business. That has become much harder in the remote reality, because even just delivering the plan in the right format and up to date in real time is the challenge there, especially in an Excel spreadsheet. Number 2 is people. You've got to align everyone to make sure that the project can happen. And we're not just talking about PMOs here, we're talking about aligning sales and customer success and bringing these people maybe earlier or later in the stages to make sure that it actually makes sense. For example, Jonathan was talking there about customers having to repeat themselves. That shouldn't be happening. So you want to make sure that there's that team alignment across all departments. Number 3 is process. Obviously, you've got to now, in the new remote reality, streamline your workflows and basically remove inefficient human processes that are going to make or exacerbate that remote delivery problems. So you basically want to remove the friction of your process to make sure that delivery is and the time to value is as quick as possible. Then the platform, obviously we're going to be talking about Salesforce today, but whether or not Salesforce is your platform of choice, you want to create that single source of truth. So making sure that the data is not set in different places, different departments and different areas, and not getting to the right people. So you want to make sure that you aggregate all those data sets into one meaningful truth for your business. And then perform. So essentially capturing that feedback, maybe it's NPS, maybe it's CSAT, from your customers or even suppliers and partners, to make sure that everyone's in alignment to deliver at one time and you're not hinging on delays from that are out of your control. So that's really simple. I know that was faster than play 1. I think Jonathan, again, you have some questions there.
Yeah, so Nathan, I mean, what factors in your world have you seen influence successful project outcomes at the moment? I think you might be on mute.
Sorry, just saw that. I think the most significant factor that's probably impacted or influenced successful project deliveries and outcomes is just the mutual understanding on exactly what the process is for delivering our projects. And what I mean by that is you can have the best delivery process or system in the world, but if the client you're engaging with struggles to utilize it or see the benefits from it, or just because structurally the way they're organized, they can't really, it's difficult to onboard them, then you're going to really struggle to have that level of engagement that is required to deliver the project as successfully as possible. So I think that's probably been one of the things we've really tried to double down on during this period, is just, it's that onboarding process. We need to make sure that a client is is as comfortable as possible with the way we're intending to deliver the project. And to do that, we need to really take them through exactly what our process is and why we're delivering the project in this way. So and one of the things that we've tried to really leverage as a result of this new reality is just, for example, the community function that we have on our engagement model. So ideally, one of the things we've been trying to do is ensure that on all of our projects, the customer has access to a community that enables them to communicate directly with our project team and in one way. So we're not struggling with comms based on there being multiple different ways that clients can communicate with us on. So they could be mentioning us on documents or potentially sending us emails or sending us GChat. No, for project comms, it's all being centralized via one funnel. And again, that goes back to the point where the client has to understand the value of that. And once they do, we find that our projects are far more successful in how we deliver them than others.
Okay, cool. And what about from your perspective, Sean?
So I 100% agree with Nathan in terms of aligning that communication. I think what we saw is our project management teams and onboarding teams were using very competent software for managing the progress of projects, but it was sitting outside of the central point where everyone was operating. And so for us, it was a bit of a black box. It was people understanding the state of a particular project, what stage it was it slipping, was it ahead of schedule, was any support needed. You're not going to get a customer success manager or a salesperson or someone in the engineering team logging into a separate piece of software if they're spending all of their time in one place. So for us, moving all of the work into Salesforce and making it visible and opening up the opportunity for people to come in and have discussions around particular projects, to make it very, very easy for people to loop in other people saying, hey, can I just get your opinion on this? Or we think this is going to be a bit of a blocker, so can we have a discussion with the client to see if we can come up with an alternative solution? That in many ways has been transformational for us in ensuring that customer is getting that getting that really strong execution and getting the sense that we're working together as a team on a project to deliver it quickly, timely, and demonstrate the value.
Okay, yeah, I think this idea of like having an understanding of the anatomy of really what works for you as a business. So anyone on the call this morning, it is tremendously important. Oftentimes, there's quite a top-down focus on how can we improve performance, and it's very difficult to do that if you don't have an intimate understanding of actually how you should be delivering, how long it should take, and what does good look like. Because if you can understand that on an individual basis, so take a piece of work, maybe it's your more transactional work, could even be something much more complex, and really figuring out what good looks like, and then tangibly and very self-consciously making that change. So you understand as a business, we ran this thing differently, and here was the improved outcome, and then sharing that as a best practice moving forward is something that I think the best companies do. I think there's also, though, very often, and particularly when companies invest in new technologies, they can jump to this idea that automation is going to save the day. And in any piece of work, there's the work that we all do, the work itself, and then there's the administration of the work. And what too often happens again here is that we set up the administration of the work to be almost perfect, right? The right number of tasks, dependencies, timelines, and often all that ends up in happening is that we overcomplicate it. And again, I think what the best companies are thinking about is like, let's try and strip it right back. So we've got the minimal amount of admin for our team internally. And then if we're sharing plans with our clients, we should really be sharing the stuff that they care about. That's one of the changes that we've made in Precursive. Previously, we were sharing project plans and resource plans, like staff who were doing specific activities with the client. And we were sharing stuff that we cared about, but that the client didn't necessarily care about. So we flipped that, And we're very much only sharing now with them, what do you need to do and when? What amount of capacity do you need for that? What types of skills might you need for that? Because those are the items that the client really cares about, because they've got multiple projects that are running outside of a Precursive implementation, and therefore managing their own resources is very, very important. So I think that that word anatomy, if you take that one of the things away today, I think that's been like that understanding of what good looks like and how you can influence that will help you drive process improvements in your business.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and it's not just the word understanding kept on coming a lot, but it's not just internal understanding; it's that mutual understanding between you and your customer. Because I think what most companies get right is the concept of what they're delivering. That's why they've interacted in the first place. But it's, are you executing on what you said you'd deliver is another question, and are you executing on it well, and is that clear to the customer? So I think that's all great insights, guys. Again, I'm going to turn it over nervously to the audience. Is there any questions on this section, or any comments on what people have said? Come on, just one person. Everyone's got this on in the background. This is there this morning, today. Cool. Okay. Well, I'll move on to play 3 then. So future proofing. So we've basically been telling you how to plan your today. This is how you can plan for the future, given that the new remote reality is still in play and might still be in play for a long time. And there's some key questions we might need to think through, because it's how do we future proof for the next normal? Things can change. And how do we accelerate changes to deliver more value to customers? So it's not just about living in the remote world. It's like, how can we actually use this to benefit our customers in general, even if things do return to normal? So parallel to this, Salesforce actually created the Work.com initiative, and it was their response to the COVID-19 crisis. And I just wanted to pull something out of their playbooks, a little bit of plagiarism here. Basically, we're going to struggle to return to a new way of working. So this is why people keep saying this is the new remote reality. It's not just the next 3 months, the next 6 months. This is what you're going to be living probably for a while now. And also, if you look at companies like Google, people have now understood and seen the benefits of remote working as well, so they're happy to continue to do so. So you were kind of setting up your functions in remote working out of necessity, as again, I'll mention that a lot of you said you were forced into this situation of remote delivery, but it will eventually become an ongoing requirement as the way we view work has changed. So, like I said, we need to consider the following: how we future-proof our projects for the next normal, and how we leverage this as an opportunity. And there's 3 key areas where we can do that. So number 1 is alignment. Collaboration is essentially that keystone of project management, and that's never been more important than now. So customer strategy, stakeholder objectives, customer success, all those tactics must now become completely aligned. And managing data across multiple systems has to go out the window. It's now a thing of the past. Number 2 is that speed. So you said it before, the time to value, and that's really key to lifetime value of the customer. So if you think about customer success hinging on this speed, almost speed is that currency of the business. And so it's actually something you've really got to appreciate throughout the whole life cycle. So in the current climate, value creation might be a primary driver for any project, but if you can't deliver it on time, then you're probably going to risk losing that customer anyway. So that time to value is just a critical metric to track throughout your project process. And then there's insight. So being truly agile really depends on your ability to react to feedback immediately. And that can be feedback simply from your customer, but also operational data or stakeholder management. But this needs to be across your project portfolio as well. It can't just be for a subset. And this needs to inform your future ways of working, and they need to be better ways of working. So those are the 3 key areas that will help you align for the next normal and accelerate digital change. But as you build for the future, we recommend you keep these things in mind. All speed, insight, and alignment almost come together on a Venn diagram, because with insight, you're starting to use insight from customers to improve how you deliver, and that improved collaboration process, and how quick you can be responded. So that might be building your NPS or CSAT scores into your project data, which can either help the client you're talking to or future clients you'll be talking with. Speed, you can move faster to make it easier for customers to know what is happening and when. And you need to really consider about this is basically what Jonathan was saying, about the right KPIs for project work that will enhance that customer experience. What do they actually care about? And as you can see, these things come together across the middle. So this is that Venn diagram that I was talking about. And then finally, alignment. So this is back where we loop back to Salesforce. Salesforce allows you to bring multiple teams into the same place and visualize that work from sales through to delivery and into customer success. So that automation can enable you to streamline various elements of your project work and literally get ahead of demand. So this actually becomes a cultural aspect for your organization. What's important is making sure that all these different parts interact to make sure that you have an agile mindset as a central tenet of your organization. And that's very hard to do in multiple spreadsheets, multiple systems, as Sean was saying. So again, a nice quick short one. But future-proofing is probably one of the biggest things here, because going into the new remote reality, we have no idea what that might look like. The new normal in 2021 might be completely different to what we're doing now. And if you don't have the ability to be agile in that system, then you might have problems. So Jonathan.
It's a positive note, Robbie.
The world's going to hell.
So
a bit quiet, Jonathan, on my end.
Oh, am I a bit quiet? Okay. So Sean, how are you guys planning for the future now and looking to improve?
So I think part of it is the reality is that remote working and there's plenty of companies out there that have been doing this for a while. Fundamentally within customer success, really what we're trying to do is become trusted partners with our customers, and that the key part of that is being able to build strong relationships. And because we are no longer able to kind of have those face-to-face meetings or run events and bring people and have offline discussions and be in the room with people, we have to we're looking at ways that we can kind of replicate that and pick up on those bits that we might be missing from those types of engagements from operating in a remote world. And part of that is looking at those people that have done it very successfully already and learning from them. For us, it's really is looking at how do we make sure that we are communicating in the correct way with our customers. Looking at the ways that we're running our meetings, the simple things of moving to having all of your meetings run on Zoom. It means that you can ask the customer at the beginning, shall we record this? And then you can share the recording afterwards. So everyone has got the same information from what was discussed. And then we need to be able to ensure our customers have the confidence that we can deliver projects as quickly as possible and deliver them and set those expectations from the beginning. So for us, we're looking at making sure that everyone has access to the information. So if a salesperson is talking to a potential customer about a particular project, they can make commitments around our ability to deliver that project in the timelines confidently. And then when we come in to execute on that, we're aligned and we're not having to kind of have that initial conversation, actually it's going to take this amount of time. I hadn't realized that hadn't been a discussion and so on. So we're making sure that we're really pushing hard to have that alignment that perhaps is easier to get when you're sitting in an office together Nathan was talking about previously, by pulling all of the conversations into one place, providing that information to the right people at the right time, and looking at all different ways that we can bring the customer into the conversation so they feel that they are getting a sense that things are progressing, and that when we need their feedback on something, they can easily have an easy channel to provide that feedback, and we're always on the same page and continuing to build those partnerships in the remote world.
Yeah. I mean, we recently changed bank for our business, and I as a shareholder and as a signatory had to go through that process individually. And this particular bank, I won't name them, had an online onboarding system, and it was awful. And the reason why it was terrible was because I never knew where I was in that process, and inevitably in a project or in a customer onboarding situation, there's a range of information that you as the customer need to bring to bear. You might not always have it on you. I mean, there was various things that I needed to input across that duration. And every time I came back into this online system, it took me back to the beginning. And so it took me probably 3 or 4 times as long to figure out where I was and what I needed to do next. And that's really, really frustrating. So I think your point around like, we want to be able to build great relationships and customer success with our clients, and we want to give ourselves the maximum amount of time for that to happen. And therefore, the gap between when we close a deal, win a customer, and actually get them seeing value from our solution is really important. In my experience with this bank, like, I would not recommend them now based upon that onboarding experience, right? It's just as simple as that. We'll use it, but it's kind of begrudgingly. In your world, Nathan, as you look to the future, what are some of the things that you're doing to prepare for it, and what do you think is going to be really important as you look to drive further improvements in how you guys deliver?
Yeah, I think it's quite similar to some of the points that Sean made, and I guess with a slightly different lens on it, just being more focused from a project delivery perspective. But we're trying to just implement a little bit more of a strategic change in terms of how we're engaging with our clients to ensure we're just planning for the future as much as possible from a road mapping perspective. So, for example, if we have a client who wants us to deliver maybe a service cloud implementation, we want to frame that engagement with further investment, let's say, in terms of understanding what their grand plan is for this actual project. So we want to ensure that we're going on a journey with the client longer term, rather than saying we're going to deliver this and then deliver something else in isolation. And the reason being is the fact that if we're able to get a bigger picture of what their bigger end goal is from a business perspective, we can utilize the technologies in this new environment to make sure we get there at a faster pace. So essentially, what we're trying to do strategically with our customers now is have that roadmap planned out as much as possible based on the information our customers can provide us with, which will then have a resulting impact on how quickly we're able to unlock these features and these products for them over the short, medium, and long term. So it's just that slight strategic tweak to ensure that we're leveraging this new environment to our advantage and to the benefit of the customer, so we can provide more customer value over the long term.
And in other people's worlds, that might be like, here's how this project feeds into that broader strategy, either for the business or for the business function that they're working with. Is that fair to say?
Yes, exactly. So sometimes you might have, obviously, the Salesforce piece might be a smaller piece of the bigger puzzle, but there still might be other elements that haven't been unlocked, so that the customer may have been thinking about, that we can potentially leverage at an earlier stage just because of the nature of the engagement or the situations that we do find ourselves in. So we try to bring as far more people into the engagement than we probably traditionally used to, and explain to them why this is important over the longer term based on where we are now and what the business is potentially trying to achieve.
Yeah, there's a couple of comments from people on the line. So Lorna's been saying that in her business that they are looking at how they can share relevant information with the customer and via documentation. I think one comment on that one, Lorna, is ask customers very early in that process. Really, do they understand them? Do they understand the documents? How good are they? We sometimes, as suppliers, because we deal with that information day in, day out, it totally makes sense to us. One of the great things that I experienced when being onboarded was the templates that we were given to fill out. They had tooltips all over them and introductions to them and explanations around certain language and what it meant. Because again, I've been through experiences where people fill things out the wrong way, or the language isn't quite correct, or they don't understand the meaning. So that's something to consider. And then Mimosa, you mentioned that the onboarding stage is to provide that confidence and love, and I couldn't agree with that more. I think and you've made the point around going through the requirements, approach and process with them. I think the other thing that is really important about onboarding is that, like, it's one of the first steps in that journey as a customer, and there's a direct link between poor onboarding and particularly year one churn. Like, if you're a customer and you're buying something and that initial experience, that initial fulfillment of the promise that's been made by sales fails, then it's very unlikely that I'm going to want to buy more from you, or I'm going to delay further purchase decisions, or I'm going to ask for money off, or I'm going to ask for money back. So there's a load of business, financial, and personal impacts that are linked to that onboarding experience. And I think it's really important for people to get on the front foot as quickly as possible, right? So you're not playing defense, right? When you talk about customer success and we talk about renewals and retention, very often there's negative connotations with those things, right? It's about how we're going to save this relationship. And very much that onboarding experience should be about setting that relationship up for success as quickly as possible. Now, just going back to our panelists. So Sean, in your world, I mean, I think obviously a big part of this is people. We've talked a lot about how remote delivery is changing things perhaps differently or for the better in organizations. But what are you doing to keep your staff engaged and support them at the moment? Because, you know, there's a lot of pressure out there in people's personal and work lives. So what are you doing in that space?
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that we've kind of tried to really focus on with making sure that the teams feel they've got that support and that we know where kind of everyone is at and how they're feeling. One of the things that we've kind of got into a process now of fairly early on, we reached out to everyone in the company just to understand their circumstances. You know, were they with family? Were they at home on their own? And was there anything that they needed to ensure that they could work properly from home? So we provided some budget for people to get things such as laptop stands and keyboards and even desks and chairs for some people who didn't have those. The other pieces that we've done is you know, we've moved to making sure that we've got regular daily stand-ups with the individual teams where everyone can just check in and everyone can understand, you know, what they've been working on yesterday, what they're planning on today. Are there any blockers? Do they need any help? We run regular team lunches, so everyone will buy lunch on Deliveroo or Uber Eats, get that delivered, and we'll all just jump on a Zoom call together, and the company again will cover the cost for that. We've increased the frequency for company updates, but also shortened it at the same time, so we're having more frequent but briefer company updates. And we've done other things such as having we have a happy hour every week, where at the end of the week everyone can jump together and try and replicate that feeling of where we might all go down to the pub after work. And we also have a permanent Zoom up and running for if people just want to jump together and have coffee together or have lunch together, they can jump together and have that Zoom. And then in addition to just kind of get the check-ins on how everyone's doing, we're again running regular surveys out to the team just to make sure that we're flagging early if there's kind of any concerns or if people are perhaps struggling or not feeling where they are. And again, you know, increasing frequencies of one-to-ones with individuals just to make sure that that's part of the cadence that you have with everyone as well. Right.
Very insightful. I mean, it looks like you're going a long way there on a lot of items. So some useful insights there. Thank you, Sean. And Nathan, I know you've placed a great deal of emphasis in your one-on-one interactions with members of your team, because you've got a team of 30 now, I think, that you.
Yeah, give or take. Depending on the projects that they're running and what have you. Yeah.
So how have you sort of updated the way that you're, you know, engaging with that team around this, you know, issues of happiness and mental health, for example?
Yeah, I think very similar to some of the points that Sean's made. I think it's just around making sure that wherever there are gaps in potential interactions that were possible pre-pandemic, we're replicating those and enabling people to have the space to still have those interactions despite us working remotely the majority of the time. So similar kind of cadences, adding those cadences where people can pretty much just have the discussions about things maybe not necessarily to do with work. So on a Friday, booking in like after work drinks, also having in consistent coffee breaks within our calendars, so anyone can potentially join that and have a bit of a chat, similar to what you would be doing in the office, really, right? When you're going to get a cup of tea maybe, and you're coming back to your desk, just to try and make sure people don't feel like they're totally swamped by work. Because I think one of the most challenging things about being in this new reality is you can't just go to someone's desk and ask them a question. It's almost as if you have to potentially booking a meeting or ask if they're free for a call. So it means that a lot of people's calendars look quite hectic, just because there's that lack of informal engagement. Everything seems to have to be quite formal. So I think what we've been trying to do is just, as well as HR doing really, really good things about trying to monitor people's moods, sending out surveys, understanding how people are feeling, I think just within our organization and our structure and within professional services, it's just trying to replicate those informal kind of engagements within the current ways of working, so people still feel that they're not just swamped by work totally, and they can still be a little bit informal with their colleagues and social with their colleagues as well. So
yep. Thank you. Well, I'm conscious of the time. I think from my perspective, it's you know, it's almost because everyone's talking about this new normal, right, and the new remote reality, and these words normal and reality. You know, the simple fact is it's not normal. It's not really reality, right? It's a very different world. And so for many of us, you know, we've been living through this situation. Some of you will have, you know, families and kids. Others will be, you know, single people or living with friends. And in our business, we have that whole plethora, that whole mix of people. And, you know, one can't underestimate how, like, this ongoing situation, how much kind of pressure that does build up over time. And so I think that, you know, this morning is a great example. Like, everyone's got their cameras off. Must be quite a relief for some people, right? It is for me a little bit. I know most of the calls that I do, I've got the camera on, and I don't know whether I look at myself at the top right or look at, you know, look in the camera slot or whatever it is. And so I think that, you know, constantly trying to get back to like that piece around like people and engagement, and do the things that we do in the way that we run our business, the way that we run our projects. Do those things make it easy for our staff to do what they need to do, or do they make it hard? And I think that's the one thought that I would leave with people is like, you know, the things that we need to put in place should be, you know, the things that we put in place should be an enabler to allow people to work more efficiently and more smoothly. And if they're not, like right now, with all of the other pressures that we all face, you know, that's just a no-no in my view, right? You know, the Eric's making a point here is, you know, will project management be more cost effective? You know, will it be more costly or time consuming? So I think, Eric, the point that I'm making there around let's make it easy for people, I think it can be more cost effective, certainly for us as suppliers and for the customer. And therefore we should think about where we reinvest that time and cost in making everything for us and our customers move much more smoothly, right? Because if we can gift that time back either to our team or to our customer, you know, that's time that right now they may need to spend on themselves or their friends or their family. So cool. Any other final questions or thoughts from anyone? Big thank you to Sean and Nathan for joining. From my perspective.
No problem. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan.
Great, thank you guys. Yeah, no, I'd like to extend my thanks as well to everyone today, including Jonathan. Thank you to everyone who's asking pertinent questions on the chat function as well. Very, very insightful, and I hope you've all taken away something today. I've got a final slide. Just if you take away anything, think about culture and customer success. That is the key to this. It's not just about running projects more efficiently. It's about doing everything better for your company and for your customers. If you'd like to learn more, this was a snapshot of what's included in the playbook. So just head over to precursive.com in the resource center, you'll find it there, or just reach out to me and I'll be able to ping you across a copy. And if you've got any other questions, do feel free to reach out. You can find us at precursive.com, 4C, we are 4C.com, and you can get me at hello@precursive.com. So feel free to reach out anytime. I'll stay on the line if there's any other questions, but thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, thanks.
Thank you.